Welcome back to Passing Notes with Chaz Guinn. I'm Hayes Brumbeloe, your host. Glad to have you back. This is a podcast where we dive into not only real estate in general, but we go into a different type of real estate avenue where we're buying and selling mortgage notes. And we thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and jump in with the man of the hour, Mr. Chaz Guinn. How are you, sir?
Good to see you, Hayes.
It's good to be back.
Oh.
Episode 3.
We're cranking these out. I really
love
like it.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back. So let's go ahead and jump back in. We've talked about the barrier to entry for certain investors, especially those who are discovering the world of buying and selling notes for the first time. What is the barrier to entry for a first-time investor into the note space, and how much are they, typically, from an investment standpoint, what's it take to get into this space?
Yeah, the typical misconception in this space is thinking you need millions of dollars to be able to get in and start buying your first assets. That couldn't be farther from the truth. We've sold deals as low as $15,000, right? In terms of one check write, one single deal, or all the way up to $250,000 to $500,000 on single purchases. It really kind of varies depending upon where you're investing into the country and what your actual exit strategy truly is. If you're looking for a passive cash flow type of investment vehicles, chances are you're not spending $250,000 to $300,000 per house. Your purchase price is going to be far lower on those sorts of investment vehicles, right? So we kind of help narrow down the portfolio to fit a lower cost entry for more passive cash flow guys.
Sure.
Chances are your sub $100,000 houses usually reside in the Midwest down to the Southeast than they do on the West Coast or on coastal sides of the country, East Coast as well.
Sure.
So
that makes sense.
Right? A lot of the times guys are like, hey, do I need like $100,000 to get started with you guys? That couldn't be farther from the truth. We've seen guys come in with $25,000 and they're buying their first deal. They want to dip their toe. Sure. They kind of want to see how real the space truly is. Is it all what we heard it was? Am I able to get in my investment dollars and then get out my investment dollars in a fairly short fashion of time? The answer is absolutely yes. And that usually gets your 25 to jump up to maybe 50, right?
Sure.
And then you kind of rinse and repeat that process all over again. Before you know it, you're starting to kind of tip your toe into a lot more larger amounts of capital you're managing.
You're going from one door to two doors, flipping two doors, then all of a sudden it's four doors. I mean, it kind of grows on itself.
I won't name the investor or the buyer out there, but he'll know who he is once he hears this. But, he brought me a really good strategic plan back in 2011. Kind of set out a plan in front of us at our conference table and said, look, I want to buy my first mortgage note from you. And I'm like, okay. And at the time, we're selling 300 units a month.
Wow.
So to get me into the conference room to talk about a one single purchase, I'm sure you can imagine was a little bit tough, but he had a roadmap. I really liked his game. He's like, look, I want to buy one note this month. And a few months, I want to buy 3. Then I want to buy 7. Then I want to buy 12. Then I want to buy 17. There were all these odd numbers, so it sticks with me, right?
Sure.
And he had a strategic way of growth.
Yep.
And today he has 14,000 mortgage notes in his portfolio.
What?
14,000.
And he started with one.
Started with one. Okay. He raised enough capital. Now he's sitting on $4 to $6 billion worth of a portfolio.
Wow.
So not saying everybody is going to replicate that growth strategy, but that's a true story that is live and has been out there, and it depends on your growth path, right? So I don't know what the barrier entry is, and depending upon the investor's investment cycle. Sure. And what he wants to truly do.
I only bring that up because you see in the market currently, you see people rolling parts of their 401k and their IRAs into precious metals and all these other things to hedge against certain things and to diversify their portfolio. Let's talk about how that fits into note buying. Is that possible?
We see hundreds of clients coming into the space annually that are taking their self-directed IRAs and investing those dollars right into the note space.
Wow.
So did we see this decades ago? No way. Now we're starting to see folks saying, hey, look, my 401k is just sitting, earning me.
Probably not much to look at.
Not much to kind of be excited about. And now you can jump into an exciting space and do something with those dollars that are sitting.
With legitimate returns.
Thank you, that are asset-backed.
No doubt.
I mean, don't get me wrong with other investment vehicles, asset classes that I know folks are actively participating in today. I like asset-backed investments. I want to see my brick and mortar dwelling. I want to see that my investment can't just pick up from one state and go to the next.
Correct.
I want to know my assets are real, right?
Sure.
So that's why we're big components of teaching the real estate investment side and the strategy side. But hey, why is 401k dollars just sitting in that account?
Sure.
Go learn the space, have it redirected, come have some fun.
Exactly. So from an inventory standpoint, man, we've kind of hit on this before in previous episodes. How much inventory is truly out there right now, and what could it be in 18 months from now, 36 months from now?
Hey, about 15 years ago, there was a big term out in our world that was called strategic default. Okay, your neighbor was getting a 2% modification. They called it a HAMP mod, Home Affordable Modification Program. And these HAMPs were getting dolled out like Skittles. And they were getting dolled out because you stopped making your payment, but you told your servicer you wanted to stay and pay, and you had the economical means to stay and pay. And before you know it, you got yourself a 7% rate down to a 2%.
That's ridiculous.
Let that digest. And then your neighbor goes, hey, Bob, how'd you do that? Right? And then he stops making his mortgage payment. And before you know it, right, the domino effect continues there on. Snowball. So in today's age today, we're starting to still see a similar process carrying out.
Sure.
But look at the fixed rates today. Okay, the 30 years topping 7. Okay, some say it's going to 8. So I don't know how much strategic default and a better modification you're going to get when we've seen, 60-70% of current active mortgages are sitting at a mortgage rate less than 4%. Woo. And there's 55 million active mortgages on the market today.
55 million?
55 million active mortgages. Okay, so you're seeing at least half or more are sitting at a less than a 4% interest rate. So you're not going to see that strategic default process that happened 15 years ago that's going to happen today. However, what you are going to start seeing, you're starting to see the refinances slow down. So the payoffs are slowing down for lenders.
Right.
And you're also starting to see that from a foreclosure side, from an eviction side, those have been on a halt since COVID.
Sure.
Right? There's been moratoriums put in place that avoided landlords and lienlords, which is what we are, from being able to actually properly take the house back. That's something we can get into.
Sure.
And that's we are big components of being lienlords versus landlords.
Sure.
That's right. There's a big difference. As a landlord, you're getting the call at midnight that the water heater broke or the air conditioning broke or there's a leak in the roof.
Sure.
That's a landlord. Okay. Your property manager and yourself got to get that remedied.
Sure.
Not as a lienlord.
Right.
Okay. You're still a mortgage owner, aren't you?
Sure.
You're the one who's responsible for that water heater, for that air conditioning, for that roof leak.
Sure.
Right? So we're big components of teaching lienlords kind of versus the landlord cycle. But back to your question, how much product? How much product are we starting to see? We're starting to see 24,000 mortgages going into active foreclosure annually. And we're starting to see that same sort of volume spike being liquidated as well. So you can't flood markets and communities across the country today if you want real estate values to still stay up.
Sure.
If your neighbor is a foreclosure and your other neighbor's a foreclosure and you're trying to sell it as an active, regular real estate market,
No way.
ooh-wee, that's troublesome. So they were going to slowly be able to dribble out the volume that we know is coming in 23, 24, and 25. We feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface on volume and how much true product's coming, Hayes.
And we haven't even seen what that could potentially be because it's been shut down for 2 years dealing with COVID.
I mean, there's backlogs upon backlogs in the judicial foreclosure process today. Let's keep this very simple. If you split the country in half, there's a judicial process to foreclose, and there's a non-judicial foreclosure process to uphold. Usually, let's keep it simple. Judicial, you got to go through the court system to get through the real estate.
Right.
If you're in a non-trustee state, non-judicial state, you can be able to foreclose without involving the court system.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
Texas, to give you an example, is less than 90 days from start to finish to foreclose on an asset. Okay? Wow. Fast forward to New York, about 5 years.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Talk about true polar opposites in terms of being able to fast track a process and then actually being able to have a backlog process. Cook County, Illinois, one of the most backlog counties in the country, It takes you no more than a year and a half to even get to a judgment stage. And that's, call it 20-yard line regarding the foreclosure. You're in the red zone. You're almost there. It takes you 18 months.
Wow.
Right? So
to get in the end zone?
Just to even get prepared to get into the end zone. So we're just getting started in terms of the volume of that we're about to see. And that's why I couldn't be more energized and excited, even my 15th year in this space, to say, look, we're just getting going. And there's a lot of different metrics and data that we want to share with you guys as to why this supports why we feel like the market's coming right to us.
I love it. All right, so let's talk about foreclosures and evictions. It's one of those subjects where, we want to set the record straight and make sure that it's understood by our viewers. How are those situations managed? And what is Revolve Capital's track record when it comes to keeping families in their homes? I mean, at the end of the day, you've touched on this before, but let's peel the onion back and really be granular with it.
Over the $250 million of asset value that we have acquired over the last handful of years, we have yet to displace a family from their home yet.
I love it.
So for us, foreclosure is costly. Foreclosure is timely. It does not allow communities to stay together. And I don't mean this as a sales pitch. This is true. We want to keep families together. It's more inexpensive to keep them in together. It's more inexpensive to correct the mortgage payment that they're not making. Than to throw it into the foreclosure judicial system and start to foreclose and take forever in the day to get the real estate back.
What's that process look like when you're modifying? So, you're taking a non-performing loan. How do you modify that? Let's talk about that.
Sure. We have metrics and tools that we use through our servicer. But what we instruct our servicer is to say is we need to do a common sense modification or underwriting situation. And me and you joke all the time that common sense ain't that common anymore.
Oh, it's a superpower. I talk about it all day. It's a superpower nowadays.
For us, we really want to understand what was the hardship. This servicers don't ask these questions all the time. What was the cause of the hardship?
Sure.
Why did you stop paying? What's your current economical means to stay and pay today? Show us that. Show us tax returns. Show us stubs.
Yeah. Because you don't want to do a modification and then they still can't afford that modification.
Thank you. I mean, and the attrition rate on modifications over the last 5 years has been an 85% clip. Let me say this differently. At 8 out of every 10 modifications that are traditionally given, default.
Because it wasn't done correctly.
It wasn't done correctly. It wasn't common sense done.
Yeah.
Okay. So then Mr. and Mrs. Smith are waking up 3-4 months later in cold sweat saying, why are we making this payment?
Sure.
This is something we couldn't afford.
Still couldn't do it.
So this is where we say, from a foreclosure side, we'd much rather get you to stay and pay.
Sure.
Now, chances are, what happens in a vacancy situation? Foreclosure still needs to happen.
Sure.
Okay, from a lender perspective, I have to protect my investment, especially if my asset's sitting there with the door wide open. I need to get it locked, secured, winterized, property pres, the lawn mowed. Okay, we need to not be able to incur city fines, mechanics liens, things of this nature. Okay,
which can still be done from a laptop and a cell phone.
Again, a point we need to drive. Right? It's a point to say, look, do you physically need to be there to have all those situations I just mentioned to be carried out? The answer is no.
No.
Do you have the resources that we will plug you into? You don't have to start these from scratch. But foreclosure is costly. Eviction is costly. Okay?
Right.
However, at times they are necessary evils. But here, as our company, we teach and we help really be evangelical about this message to say, keep people in their house, focus on ways to kind of rectify the situation, understand the hardship, really understand the story. I get you, servicer. You're kind of caught up in the data.
Sure.
But are you caught up in the story?
Yeah.
Because chances are, when you underwrite the loan 10 years ago, you understood the story.
Right.
You understood their income. You understood their tax returns. You understood their ability to stay and pay.
Sure.
So that's huge.
And things change. You got to have flexibility on that. All right. So, I think this space it's asking for people. The eyeballs and the I can see the light bulbs going off in a lot of people's head. From your perspective, what do you think the biggest benefit is for an investor finding out about this space, whether they're transitioning some of their 401k, because everyone's looking at the stock market. They're looking at your traditional investments. Can someone actually use crypto to jump into this space?
I'm glad you touched on that, because we have just started a new fund that our portal, the back end of our portal, is actually allowing crypto and Bitcoin to be able to invest into the fund.
Really?
I mean, that's something that has never been offered yet to the market.
No way.
And now folks are being able to transfer crypto and Bitcoin into a fund that's asset backed. And us as the operator get to have that transferred to us into cash before we accept it.
Sure.
What?
It's like a whole new world. I feel like it's not only a new investment space. I mean, it's an asset class that most people aren't 100% familiar with. But man, it's just the opportunity. It's just it's like not ringing the dinner bell, but man, it is ringing some kind of bell.
I mean, you and I were just talking about this offline a little while ago, where up until 10 plus years ago, 2012, I think they said that actual houses or mortgages or deal flow, whatever you want to call it, your traditional single family home, was never purchased online. There wasn't video and pictures used.
Right.
Look at HGTV. They've blown up with these fix and flip shows.
Right.
These basement renovation shows.
Love
right.
it.
They get to do these really cool, glamorous.
My wife is obsessed.
My wife is obsessed with these deals. Now, so was I. Right. $1 million listing. All these really cool ways of showing.
Also, another one we love.
How to get in and out of deal flow. I mean, trust me, I'm the same. I can't sit here and lie as if I don't love the show as well. There's a really cool, appealing part of it.
Sure.
But I'm absolutely biased. I think what we're doing is far sexier.
Sure.
Right. And I know that term for us probably doesn't get used all that much into our space, but we're trying to, because we are buying homes for far cheaper than the television shows are showing you.
100%.
And you're still able to create those same exit strategies.
And from an investor standpoint, that's all you care about.
Right? I mean, your margins are unprecedented what we're doing over here.
You can't get them anywhere.
No. And the thing about it is, we get the question a lot, is this too good to be true?
It sure looks that way, but
I know that what we try to really present and what we try to kind of erase from the moment we get to know you, there's no smoke and mirrors.
Right.
There's no middleman between us and the deal flow. There's a lot of the times when you get into the note space, there's brokers, there's folks that present deal flow to you that act like they're the owner of the transaction. And little do you know, you'll make an offer, right? You really think you've got a potentially good opportunity on your hands, and you come to find out that the person that showed you the deal flow doesn't even own the assets. And this is a broker who's trying to kind of create a spread
sure
between the folks who really showed it to him, and you're kind of creating your own deal flow, right? But this is where, for us, we're no middlemen, we're no joker, we're no broker.
That's Revolve Capital.
We're principal owners of everything we do. That's Revolve Capital.
That's huge.
And in this space, it's a unicorn.
Right.
There's only a handful of us that are really being able to act in that principal mindset. But as far as we know, we are the only main opportunity to bridge between Wall Street and Main Street.
That's a big deal.
If you want to come in as one single off buyer, where are you going today to get real consistent deal flow?
Right.
Unless you kind of park yourself in with a real legitimate source.
Right.
Again, no smoke and mirrors. We are who we say we are. We present you guys also with a package. We called it a business in a box.
Yes.
But when you come to buy from us, we also package it up with real-time diligence information. We say this all the time, Hayes. Trust, but verify. Right? And what that verification process truly is let me see the real-time value. When did you run it? 30 days ago? Let me see the title. When did you run that? 30 days ago. Right. Look at the taxes. Look at the servicing comments. The servicing comments are the story.
Sure.
Between the homeowner and the servicer. They call it the servicing comments. Really let me understand what's going on and what's going on as of yesterday.
Sure.
Right? We're providing all of this information to you as confirmatory.
Right.
So you guys can see that, hey, look, I'm getting real deal flow from a real legitimate seller, that there's no brokers in between.
Right.
And they're giving me verification data.
Right. That's big.
So again, kind of a differentiator for us.
That's the difference between what Revolve Capital does and what brokers do.
Absolutely.
I think that's huge value. When from an investment standpoint, you want to partner with someone that is providing all of that. And at Revolve Capital, it is a business in a box.
When we first got in to the space,
right,
a handful of years ago, we heard, hey, here's the Excel spreadsheet. Here's the data. You go verify. You go run your own values. You go check your own title.
The everyday person can't do that.
Not a chance. Excuse me. If they don't have the proper resources to do such a thing, where do they start?
Right. And how quickly do they then exit because they just couldn't figure it out?
Thank you. So they get into the space. They're excited. They don't have the proper resources. The brakes are put on before you even got out of the gates.
Sure.
See, that's where it changes with Revolve Capital.
And that's where it changes with Revolve Capital.
You know, this is why we're doing this. This is why we said, let's create real content, consistent content, because we're doers. We're in this space.
Correct.
We're buying dozens of millions of dollars, if not $100+ million annually in this space. But we want to really create a database and really create folks that say, look, I want to change my life. I want to change my wealth. I want to change my lineage and my
Creating
tree.
abundance.
Thank you. But how do you do that without education, proper resourcing, proper infrastructure? Right?
Toolkit.
So let's bring down the barrier. Let's offer these toolkits. Let's offer a real source who's no smoke and mirrors,
Right.
who is who they say they
It's
are.
a step-by-step process.
That's not out there today.
It's not.
It's not out there.
That's a differentiator.
So that's why for us, we say, look, we want to teach, you mentioned on a few things. We want to teach some things that are ethical, right? It's much better to keep somebody in their house than to foreclose or evict on them.
100%.
Okay. It's far cheaper to get them to reperform on their asset and either keep that as mailbox money, cash flow, passive cash flow, or reflip the deal asset.
100%.
Also, look for late stage foreclosures. If you're a fix and flip, if you're a rental, if you're a real estate focused guy or gal, probably should be looking at late stage foreclosures to buy the asset for a far cheaper value. Okay, these are things that we're just highlighting on, but this is a part of our educational course and stuff that we teach our clients to say, look, we're doing as much as we're trying to teach you.
Yeah.
And we're not just educators.
Right.
We're doers.
Right.
So come have some fun and help learn a new space, but come do it alongside us.
We'll give you the education and the job.
Thank you. We got we got taught and we got the opportunity to kind of get the job right away.
100%.
Right?
Chaz, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, do all the things, and make sure you go to revolve-capital.com, learn more. We'd love to work with you personally. Thanks. We'll see you soon. Cheers.